Welcome, peeps. This video, I know I said I had other videos coming, but for some reason this concept got stuck in my head and I just had to roll with it. The concept for this video is simple. I'm gonna look at the natural power sets of each race, determine whose abilities are the best. I'll be breaking this down into 5 categories. We have speed, travel abilities, defense, attack powers, and X-Factor physiology. The examples of races I'll be drawing from will be the Sternritter Quincy, so those created under Yuha, particularly that species. I will also be using Arankar for hollows because it is stated that you can naturally become an Arankar as opposed to Shimigami who have to use a Hogyoku or maybe some other method to actually get hollow powers. And then for the Fullbringers, I will be just talking about Fullbring abilities in general as well, with using Aura's use of the technique because she is stated to use the Fullbring to its most natural and peak performance. I don't think I need to explain the Shimigami, but Shimigami will have access to all Kido, Hakuda, yada yada, stuff like that. I'm not counting Soul Reaper technology because then that's not really reflected upon the Shimigami themselves. That's more so the scientists and smart people, because if I do that, then I have to include the Quincy's equipment and technology, and then even the hollows, and the video becomes longer and more convoluted than I wanted it to be. If you're wondering if Soul Reaper equipment like the Zanpakuto or the Shihakusho will not be included, I promise you they will, and I'll explain their inclusion or possible exclusion when I get to them. So, let's get right to it. First, we're starting off with the least consequential, but I still think pretty important section of travel. This is how each race traverses the world of Bleach. The worst travel method is easily the Senkaimon. You need prep time, you need a destination, and you need to set both of those things up to avoid being destroyed by the cleaner. It's the most inefficient way to travel, and it offers no benefits for travel. A good example is that Rukia was able to travel with a Hell Butterfly by herself during the first invasion of the Arankar, but someone like Orihime needed Soul Reapers to escort her with a Hell Butterfly, and they needed time to prep it. So Senkaimon's the worst. At the number 2 spot, we have the Descodere ability. Now, it's not the Garganta ability. I know some people get this messed up. Descodere is the ability to actually open the Garganta. The Gillions have a version called Kumon, and Kumon is also used for regular hollows as well. This one almost beat out the Shadow, but the Shadow has one ability that the Kumon doesn't, and I'll get to that when I talk about the Shadow. But this one's still broken in the way that you can just kind of pull the Shade of Reality or just rip open space and jump through a Garganta, and they're completely stable and you don't have to worry about the cleaner when trying to go through worlds. The Garganta have almost no limit aside from like very sealed off dimensions like the Royal Palace, but once you have like a special rod to get there, it can easily jump to some place like the Royal Palace. Now, the clear winner is the Shadow. It's never given an official name, so we're just going to call it the Shadow for now, but it has a unique ability that neither of the other two has that puts it over it. The Shadow will hide the user's Ryatsu whenever they use the ability. We see this when the Hollow Vandenreich soldier uses it to teleport away from Ichigo. Ichigo mentions he can't sense his Ryatsu, and even later that the Quincy's have been hiding in the shadows of Soul Society the entire time, and no one knew they were there, and even when they use the shadows to make the switch, no one can sense them until they're right in front of them. Now, the Garganta, you can actually sense beings once they get closer to whatever world you're in, and on top of that, it is mentioned in Camp for Your World that even if you're hiding in a Garganta, you can still be sensed, because Ikimiki Domoe does it. One last tidbit I wanted to add, and I don't know if it's just a property of Nyanzo's ability or the Shadow, but Nyanzo was still able to use his ability to protect Yuha in the Royal Palace even while he was still hiding in the shadows, so I think that's unique. Speeding things up, we're on to movement techniques, and I think this one is definitely a lot closer than last round, so here we go. Flash Step or Shunpo is one of the 4 major techniques that Shimigami use, and under the category it's called Ho-Ho. This one is very unique because it is about how fast or how far one can move in the least amount of steps. It's an extremely cool high-speed movement, and it's the first one I think we're introduced to in the series, so it has that staying power. The Flash Step is on the more basic side of these other speed abilities that we'll be seeing, that we'll be talking about shortly. It only really has after image clones as an extra added ability, and on top of that, it has high-speed movement techniques like Utsusemi and Senka, one of which is about tricking the opponent, the other one is about blitzing them and basically destroying your opponent in one move. At the number 3 spot, we have Hirin Kakyu. Now, Hirin Kakyu is really cool, and it's just like the flash step, but it's different in the sense that a Quincy will gather reishi naturally under their feet and ride those waves almost like being propelled or riding roller skates. They also use Hirden-Kaku to airwalk like you see Quincy's and Fullbringers and Hollows do. This type of movement is directly tied to the Quincy ability to control reishi and to create these footholds. As you see in this picture, Uryu used it to create platforms that he could carry other people on, and he even used it earlier in the series, and this is how he learns to create platforms while traveling through a Garganta and stabilizing the reishi around him under his feet. And the reishi density of the air is different. Hirden-Kaku users are the only people who can make footholds and use their speed ability to the fullest. The fact that it can be used in a situation like this, and the fact that Mayuri was able to copy it, just proves that at least Hirden-Kaku is above the Flash Step ability. At the number 2 spot, we have Bringer Light. This ability gets over Hirden-Kaku and Flash Step because it can actually do what both of the others do. I believe that someone who uses Bringer Light can actually still use it in high density reishi air places, just like Quincy's can. And as you've seen Ichigo just kick Tsukishima, we also know that using this ability can increase the physical blow of your strikes. Fullbring is the ability to control matter using its spiritual components. This basically allows the Fullbringer to manipulate matter by changing the density or the elasticity of something, allowing them to basically turn cement into a trampoline, or just like I said earlier, being able to turn physical air into a walking platform, and this is why I believe they could copy the Hirden-Kaku ability. Bringer Light comfortably takes the number 2 spot because it can create after images like the others, it has enhanced abilities like the others, and it's only beat out by Sonito's unique abilities that I'll get into now. Comfortably staying at a number 1 spot, we have Sonito. Sonito does what the others do so much better and has 2 abilities specifically that make it far superior than the other 2. The first one being that when someone uses Sonito ability, their spiritual pressure disappears. Upon using the ability, no spiritual pressure is used, therefore there is nothing to sense. This often allowed the Arrancar to surprise the Shimigami. And the second ability is to create solid hard clones. When used by someone who's as good as Zomari was, you can create solid hard clones that can actually attack someone, and they do actually do damage as shown in Byakuya's coat. Sonito gets this because the Hirden-Kaku and the Bringer Light's unique ability to create footholds in specific situations is too circumstantial, and I think the other abilities give a much better advantage, and it just sounds cooler. On to defense, and this one by far of all the categories was the most contentious, and we're about to get into why, so here we go. Starting off in last place, and what I would consider a surprising one, we have the Shigami Shihakusho. Now, I know what you're saying, doesn't this fall under equipment? And I'm gonna sort of disagree. I'm going to disagree for 2 reasons. One, we know the Shihakusho is what got Senjumaru, my favorite Zero Squad member, to the Zero Squad division, meaning they must hold some special property like all her clothes do. And I think we see this in 2 ways. Reason number 1 is simple. The Shimigami are intrinsically tied to their clothes. We see this in 2 situations. One, when Rukia transfers her powers to Ichigo, Ichigo gets her Shihakusho, and she loses hers. And later, when Ichigo is in regular clothes in his soul form, after he lost her powers, he no longer has it in his soul form, and then he regains it when he gets Shimigami powers again. That alone isn't enough to prove defense, so we're going to look at our second thing. The Shihakusho will often take damage for the person wearing it, and I have 2 examples, or it actually neg it. In one situation, we have Shinsui getting shot by Stark Zero, which it just burns and takes the damage, and the damage to the cloak is similar to what we see to Shinsui, and even later when Renji's sword snaps off of Byakuya's cloak. In third place, we have one that was originally in first place, the Blue Vein ability with the Ronso Tengai. Explaining Blue Vein simply is pushing spirit energy through your veins, which then surfaces and makes your skin harder, similar to the Hiedo ability. But what it has over the Hiedo ability is that you can actually use Blutz on Haben, which pushes the energy out, creating a defensive shield so attacks don't even have to come close. Or you could do what Yuha did to Ichibei and push those veins into your opponent, basically allow you to control them or kill them or destroy them or steal their energy. Now, the supplemental ability Ronso Tengai is good for defense because, let's say, for example, someone paralyzes you like Mayuri does to Uryu in Soul Society, you could still move your entire body. Another good example would be when Kenpachi basically had all his bones broken by Pernida. If he had Ronso Tengai, he'd still be able to fight. This ability is good for supplementing one's defense by still allowing you to move after taking damage, but it's not as good as completely healing yourself. One last thing to note about Blute Vein is that it can hurt your offense. When using Blute Vein, you can't use Blute Artery to actually increase your offense. Therefore, this is part of the reason it went down to 3rd place. Because if I have to enhance my defense and I can't enhance my offense at the same time, it's a detraction. As I said at the start of this list was very contentious. So here at number 2, we have Hiedo and High Speed Regeneration. Hiedo is such a unique ability because it completely ignores some of the rules established in Bleach, and that's your defense and offense is based on your spirit energy. Hiedo can actually be far stronger than one's own spirit energy, basically allowing you to take off-guard attacks without ever actually having to worry about being damaged. This ability becomes far more terrifying when you realize the unnamed Black Hiedo ability can actually increase this defense even further. We see here Ichigo using it against Ulquiorra's Lanza, basically doing what Superman does when he holds a grenade or bomb and lets it blow up in his hand with no damage to his skin. And mentioned before, like with Blute's Anhaben, this turns a defensive ability into an offensive ability, getting it higher on the list. The instant regeneration ability that Hollows have is so broken. They've healed everything from full-on limbs like you see with Ulquiorra and several other Hollows, all the way to healing a whole heart and a chest wound when Zangetsu healed Ichigo in his fight with Ulquiorra. This ability is broken. I think there are quite a few misconceptions about this ability, like for example, healing one's limbs isn't actually that special. We see several other Hollows do it, and we even see Hollows heal from even bigger wounds that are weaker than Ulquiorra. It's just that Ulquiorra kept his regenerative abilities as opposed to discarding them for power like we see the other Espada do. As I said earlier, Ronso Tengai is cool and it's useful. Being able to move body parts that you can't move is good, but being able to straight up just heal full organs or limbs far surpasses any of the defensive abilities that you get from being a Quincy. Stealing the number 1 spot, we have the Fullbring. Now if you don't want spoilers for Can't Figure Your Own World, please click away now because I'm going to be talking about that and how one can use Fullbring masterfully. As I said earlier in the video, Fullbring is using the spiritual components of matter to control it to any which way you see fit. In the Can't Figure Your Own World novels, Ora Michibane takes this to the extreme. She has no special Fullbring ability, as in she has no attachment to anything. Therefore, she learned to use her Fullbring to its truest and most purest form, which is matter manipulation, or spirit subjugation specifically. To put spirit subjugation in its simplest form, think of the Quincy ability, but a little bit more broken, in the sense that they can subjugate the spirit particles in matter and start manipulating the actual environment as opposed to just absorbing it and creating weapons from it. With all of that information, now I'm pretty sure you can see why they have the 1st place spot. Ora was able to create a nitrogen barrier around her that blocked a level 91 Kido. She can pull apart her body and reattach them with no damage. She can heal herself from lethal wounds and make herself completely intangible, thus being able to actually not even hit her, so her defense is superb. The only way you can touch this ability, and it's kind of mentioned a couple times, if you can either attack her spiritual pressure directly with like a Kido type Zanpakuto, or with Kido itself catching her off guard. But having just those 2 weaknesses makes her absolutely broken. So unfortunately this video actually ended up being a bit longer than I expected, and if I were to put the last 2 parts at this one, it would be longer than I wanted it to be. So I'm actually going to cut this into 2 parts.